Welcome to Love to See It, a podcast about men who become infinitely more disappointing the more you learn about them.
A tale as old as time. And also a podcast about Nick and Vanessa Lachey's star turn as hosts who actually attempt to moderate a reunion.
They're like 5 years into their apprenticeship here, and
they have finally learned to shut the fuck up at the right times. And for that, we are grateful.
They're making some strides. A quick reminder before we dive into the Love is Blind Season 8 reunion that we just wrapped up covering The Traitors over on Rich Text. You can find the episode covering the last stretch of the season and actually all of our coverage at claireandemma.substack.com. And I'm ready to wrap up this season of Love is Blind.
Oh, man. I have so many thoughts. I am so excited to talk about this reunion. Usually a reunion leaves me feeling just completely unsatisfied. I will say that was not the case with this reunion. A lot of the beginning of the season I found interminable, but for me it picked up the further into it we got.
In a weird way, I think that the fact that there wasn't so much going on the whole time meant that there wasn't too much to get to in the reunion, and it wasn't overstuffed, and there weren't as many threads being dropped. There was still like filler, and there were definitely still threads dropped. But on the whole, it's like everyone said their piece, and sometimes they said things that were shocking or revealing, but it wasn't such a scramble trying to get it all out there.
And I feel like the vast majority of the women really came correct.
They were ready.
They were so ready, and I absolutely loved it.
The way that the women showed up versus the men, like the women were all like icy cold, girded for battle, like battle tested, scarred, like I've been through it and I'm ready to come out here. And
the men are like doop de doop doop de doop.
The men are like doop de doop de doo. I'm gonna come say sorry about that, and everyone will be like, it's
nice
fine.
Guy.
Like they're on different shows.
They really are. Before we get into the content, I think we need to talk about the vibes of this reunion. The fashion, I'm so sorry to say, it was not doing it for me.
This was a rough outing fashion-wise. We've had some good reunion looks over the years. Not on Sunday, not this time. I will say that in person, I didn't love the photo, but I did think that Virginia looked gorgeous.
I agree. I will say a lot of the photos that were posted were simply really unflattering photos, and so Netflix should allow the cast members to perhaps sift through their own like
everyone can pick
images.
out a bad photo of themselves.
Yeah, Virginia's look I think played a lot better in movement than it did in a still photo.
A lot of them were just, Taylor had the high prom hair that I hate when women do this for the reunion. Like, this isn't prom. You don't need a giant updo.
I thought Lauren's hair makeup, I thought she looked beautiful. Great. I thought Lauren looked absolutely incredible and the makeup nailed it. Sarah, I thought her hair and makeup looked really great, but the dress was bad.
I don't even remember.
And it's also a thing. It was like the sexy funeral look. It was like lace and leather.
Yeah.
Lace and pleather. I mean, I learned from being a talking head on a couple like random news shows that open skin in the chest reads like extra noticeable on television.
Well, and it was strapless.
Right.
So
that's what I mean. It's strapless.
Naked.
You end up looking kind of naked, and it ends up reading as like just a whole like I don't know. You should always have a more visible neckline is what I learned on TV.
Yeah, always listen to Emma when it comes to picking outfits. Sarah, you've been warned. I thought that like a lot of the women's makeup was actually so off color-wise. Like, they looked great, but it was as if they had used the wrong color palette.
Monica looked beautiful, but she was a different shade. They went to, whoever her makeup artist was, went really overboard on the bronzer.
I did not recognize her.
Like, they tone it back. The hair was great, and I liked the neckline on her dress.
I think her whole look to me, though, it was too much trying to make her look like a different kind of person.
Yeah.
And she's so beautiful. I wish they had like done
Let her
something that was more
shine.
expressive of her style. But that's just my opinion.
We saw too many men's ankles.
Devon looked like he was dressed for like the Met Gala as a man. You know, that's always what men do for like the Met Gala is like it's sort of a suit, but it's like shiny and satin and wide somehow and short.
I think I would have been more okay with it if the pants hadn't been hemmed at the completely wrong place. And also the shoes were like black and white saddle shoes, which just completely broke up the look. Alex, terrible. Alex's ankles were out. Dave's suit was very ill-tailored.
You're like, Alex, please put those ankles away.
I
No
mean,
one needs
Alex,
that here.
we didn't need. Frankly, I would have preferred to see none of him, given
Joey. Yeah, well, Joey brought his longboard as an accessory, and he longboarded out on stage.
I hated it.
And he had like a clear acrylic longboard.
I mean, you know what? It actually felt right because Joey really descended into the depths of enemyhood over the course of the last episode and then also the reunion. So the longboard was just the fucking cherry on top of a shit Sunday.
He's just rolling right into the bad graces of this audience.
Yeah. This
but
audience of two.
This audience
lost
of two.
us.
I was like, Joey, do you think this is cute? Like, no one, is this your like personal branding moment?
Nothing about Joey was cute during this reunion. Not one thing.
So another thing that I noticed about this reunion is that everyone is sitting really far away from each other because they brought everyone on stage. There was no like, and now we're going to hear from like these couples who didn't make it out of the pods, but like, boy, they sure made an impression. Like Mason, Madison, Alex, and Meg, come on out here. No, they just were like there the whole time. So it was like a football field long. And at one point, two of the like a couple that's broken up was talking to each other.
They're so
and
far
the camera
away.
pulls
they can't
back.
even see each other.
It's like they'd have to like holler across the way.
I know. At this point, I was like, why didn't they bring Brittany out?
Right.
I guess they figured B Dot's connection with Devon wasn't like dramatic enough. But frankly, given all of the values stuff that Virginia brought up, I would have loved to hear B Dot talk a little bit more about Devon's reaction to her queerness.
I know. I have follow-up questions.
So do I. Brittany, we would love to have you on the pod.
Let's get into the content a little bit. Did you notice that it's the 5-year anniversary of Love is Blind?
What? 5 years?
It's actually a running theme this episode. It's been 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Is that, were there 5 moments for 5?
There were 5
years?
moments, 5 of the most memorable moments.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's the stuff that everyone was waiting to see is which 5 moments were they going to pick.
It's so true. When I go to a reunion about season 8, I'm like, but won't they replay that time Chelsea said that people on an airplane think she looks like Megan Fox?
God, of course that was one of the top 5 moments.
And yet there were so many iconic ones, frankly, that they skipped over.
And yet, you know what they put in that really should not have been on the... I was baffled by this one. I was like, you have 5 moments from 8 seasons, and you're going with the moment when Taylor and Garrett came out at the reunion, and he looked like he had a nice outfit on. That's one of your top 5 moments.
I was like, Jessica gave wine to her dog, and we're going with that.
Someone threw a ring into a pool in season 1.
Oh
and said,
my God,
Carlton!
Season 1 was
Carlton
iconic.
And Diamond. I mean, yes, you're never gonna recapture that magic. No, I was like, honestly, 5 years is not that long for a reality TV show. I don't really understand why we're making such a big deal out of this milestone.
I feel like what they could have done is just give us those like check-in videos from the married couples of the 5 seasons. That would have been enough. Like to celebrate 5 years, like just give us the updates on your success stories.
Yeah, go ahead. Remind me that Johnny and Amy exist. I had to Google who is that couple.
Oh my God. They're cute.
To fill me in on what they've been up to. We didn't
No, I
need
keep
all
forgetting
this
about
filler.
Milton, but they are still
They're
honey too.
they're still together, Milton and Lydia. Okay, but for real, let's talk about these couples and love quadrangles.
Taylor and Daniel. There's not a lot to say about them because they are just happy and married and seem totally in love and seem to have like a beautiful relationship. We learned that Daniel's mom was diagnosed with leukemia, which is obviously very upsetting, and she's preparing for a bone marrow transplant. It seems like her treatment has gone well and she is currently cancer free. But we learned that Daniel's dad was like living part-time with Taylor's brother because Daniel's mom was getting treatment at the hospital where Taylor's brother works. So he was like, yeah, crash with me. Like, it just seems like their families have fully integrated, and it's very sweet.
Yeah. I mean, they have the classic update where it's just so many videos and pictures of them having a good time. They're like, our families get along. Everything is great. They've just bought a house together. One thing I do really need to talk about, though,
The
and I think
tattoo?
you know what I'm going to say.
Because I need to talk about it too. I was alarmed.
The photorealistic tattoo of Taylor's eyes on Daniel's chest.
I thought when he said eyes, I was like, okay, little weird, but I thought it was going to be like, a simple line drawing or something. And it was like, no, this is a nod to her beautiful eyes. No. It is like a slice of her face.
It's a slice.
In frightening detail. Right on his chest.
The shading, it's precise.
It's too much.
It is. It's like he got a slice of a photograph just Xeroxed onto his chest.
And you know what? If you love it, then Godspeed.
I mean, I want to know more about how Taylor feels about looking that whenever she's enjoying some couples time with her husband, and she is staring back at herself from his chest, just a slice of her.
She's probably just like, babe, we got to do doggy style again. I can't be looking into my own eyes.
I can't. I can't see that.
That is horrifying. Yeah, like, look, I don't like to look in a mirror when I'm having that. I respect that that other people love that.
But what if instead of a mirror, it were just a very still, static picture just of your eyes?
I'm gonna print out a photo of myself to test this out. Just like glue it.
We could never do it because Greg has too much chest hair.
Well,
I would be like peering out from behind a thicket. You would just see me faintly.
I'm just picturing like Claire's eyes coming out of like the cornfields of Field of Dreams.
Yeah, it would be exactly like that.
I'm crying.
That's sort of what the tattoo looks like anyway. But there's no corn.
Yeah, you're so right. So lucky that Daniel is really
not a hairy man.
No.
Better to display his beloved's eyes. The execution of this is the most unhinged thing I have ever seen.
I'm really unwell.
I thought it would be like illustrate, like, and even so, I was like, her eyes, like just her eyes. But yeah, like maybe it'll be a beautiful illustration.
Right. I thought like an interpretive line drawing, like.
And it's not even just the eyes, it's like the shading of the face around the eyes, but just in a box. You just have to see it. You just have to, if you haven't watched this, you just have to see it.
Yeah, it really has to be seen.
And then go to your partner and say, babe, I need you to talk to your tattoo artist about getting a tattoo just like this of my eyes, or else you don't really love me.
So that's our update on Taylor and Daniel. I think we've said all that needs to be said.
What else can you say about this golden couple? I'm truly so happy for them.
I really am so happy for them.
Actually, the only other thing I'll say is that there were a lot of American flags in their photos, and you never know what that means these days. I will say I was glad to see that Daniel raised 2 hands when asked whether we can all agree that you
are allowed to have casual sex and then find love. And he was like, yes, women are allowed to have casual sex. So
Yes,
thank you,
we do.
Daniel.
Thank you,
An ally.
Daniel.
Hashtag ally.
Hashtag. We love an evolved man. We don't get many of them on this
We
show.
certainly don't. Speaking of those, let's get into Virginia and Devon. Virginia showed up ready. And I was getting a hint of what the tenor of this this reunion between the two of them was going to be, because Virginia was letting her friends really speak their mind when the weddings episode came out. I don't know if you saw, but one of her, I think I sent this to our group chat, one of her friends who was like one of her bridesmaids, she was in the show, was posting screenshots of her face from like the audience of the wedding scene, being like, the face you make when like you're afraid your girl is gonna say yes to a dusty trumper who made her pay for every meal. And Virginia reposted it. So I was like, oh, here we go.
Like, it's one thing to be like, say your piece, girlfriend, but like she reposted it. Like, it sort of looks at first glance like Virginia posted it.
Yes. Yeah. No, she was like, yep, dust. And the minute I saw Dusty Trumper, I was like, well, yeah, cool. Our fears about Devon have been confirmed.
Yeah, she seems pretty clear on that. So Virginia, who was very like to the end, soft, gentle, understanding with Devon, didn't want to say no, didn't want to hurt him. She has turned a page and she has come out ready to inflict damage in battle. She was like, I have a list of grievances.
And also,
and I will
think
state them clearly.
I think that she felt like in wanting to protect Devon and respect the things that he hadn't wanted to speak about on camera, she had not made her own views clear. And I think maybe that was weighing on her. You see her mother, who of course is a Minnesota House representative, in the audience the whole time, just like nodding along for her daughter. She's like, yes.
Yeah. I wonder if it was partly because she made a lot of her decision based on that. And it seemed like she made it based on something so small. Because the way that Devon would have you see it from their conversation is that they're basically aligned on abortion. And maybe they won't always vote the same, but like he, supports her doing whatever. And they're not so far apart, really. And she clearly doesn't see it that way.
No. So she says that, yes, I got there emotionally with Devon, but we were not in alignment on some really important things like core values, which, yeah, core. It's right there in the term, core. And so she says that Devon did not want to speak about his core values on camera. And she says she still does not feel comfortable speaking for him and letting the audience know what his views are, but she will, quote, be really clear about mine. She says she 100% supports the LGBTQ community. She supports women's rights to have abortion care. And she points to the fact that she believes that there is beauty and value in different religions.
She says something I thought was really lovely, which I had never heard before, which is that she sees it as talking to God in different languages.
Yes, I was so moved by that.
Yeah, I thought that was lovely. And like a lot of us are raised in religions, Catholicism, where it's sort of like this is the one true way to God and everyone else is so mistaken. Pray for them, they're going to hell. And so that framing is actually not something that I've ever really heard, and I thought it was just lovely.
I thought it was so lovely. And she points out that she has Muslim family members, that there were women with wearing hijab in the audience at their wedding. And it definitely raised some question marks for me about Devon.
Yeah, I think that was her intention.
Yes. And effective.
Yeah, she probably was like, well, he's not going to have this conversation on camera, but that doesn't mean that I can't say who I am. and
Right.
people can draw their
And
conclusions.
say that we did the line.
Right. And Devon, I'm sorry. Virginia is so smart and poised and sharp. And when she is not kind of like boosting him up or accommodating him or placating him, and she just kind of comes at him, he looks so flat footed and unprepared and
Flailing.
just kind of like flailing. And he keeps being like, well, I think you can have a relationship and not agree on everything. And I think that's fine. And you might not see eye to eye towards the togetherness on that united one thing, but that doesn't mean you can still have a relationship, and that's fine. And then he'll just kind of like stop and look sort of like in a agitated, like desperate looking way at the moderators, and they're like, okay.
Keep hanging yourself with your own rope, buddy. He
Like,
also,
it's like, sure, you don't have to agree on everything, but like she has every right to be in a relationship with someone who agrees with her on this stuff, on like the value of her family members' religions and whether she could have the right to have an abortion without his permission.
I'm just frustrated, so frustrated at the idea that not wanting to partner with someone who would actively vote against the human rights of yourself and your loved ones is like being petty and insisting on someone just falling in line with you 100%. Like, no, babe, we can disagree about what we want for breakfast in the morning, or maybe even do we want to live in the city or the suburbs? Maybe that's a gap that we can bridge. Basic human rights? No, we cannot bridge that gap.
I mean, I think a lot of this goes back to the fact that historically women didn't have the right to vote, and a lot of minorities didn't have the right to vote. But a lot of men, I think, carry with them deep down this sense that like they're the ones kind of making decisions. So it's okay if the women feel differently about stuff. That's their right. They don't get to, put that into action. Like, you're in charge, right? Like, you can have your little vote or your little consciousness raising group if that makes you feel better.
But don't put it
But
on
like,
me.
ultimately, I'm in charge. And women don't feel that way. We know that men also have a lot of power. It's important to us to be partnered with someone who isn't going to be someone we have to fight against to get our human rights. And men are looking at it more from a perspective of like, my opinion is the one that matters. So it's okay, whatever hers is. And that's becoming more and more of an issue now that women have accumulated so much political power. And that's why we're seeing this huge backlash carries with it a lot of talk about taking away women's right to vote, which a lot of men on the right are talking about these days.
And some women now. So
yeah, they don't want to have to vote.
Super fun.
Their husband has all the right opinions. Why can't he just vote for them? And then she can stay at home with their beautiful children.
Well, it's her rightful place, Claire. I also am so frustrated to hear Devon pull out the like, as a Christian, you can love everyone, even if you don't agree with them. And that to me is just such a fundamental misunderstanding of what love is. Like, to truly love someone is to use your power to honor their full humanity.
Yeah.
I don't think you love someone if you're looking at them and saying, well, your life as an LGBTQ person is fundamentally wrong, but I still love you. Like, that is not love. That is not real love. That is weaponizing the concept of love.
Yeah. I mean, again, as a Catholic school grad, I'm very familiar with this framework.
I know you are.
We love the sinner. We hate the sin. That's why you can't start a gay straight alliance at our school, even if it were explicitly just about supporting gay students who are celibate and who want to live within church teachings. You still can't do that. We love them, but we don't want to support them as gay people, even if they are adhering to church teachings. Like, there's always that little bit of like, actually, though, you're really not welcome. Actually, though, we really don't love you that much. We only love you if you pretend that you're someone that you aren't. And that's not love. I think that like there's a concept that we're all familiar with, which is like, oh, just because you love someone, like, should you say that it's okay for them to murder someone? Like, no, of course not. So, but like, it's not the same thing.
It is not.
And that to pretend that like you're just holding them accountable in some loving way by telling them not to be who they are, which is not hurting anyone, is really offensive and alienating to people. Like, why would she want to be married to someone who thinks that way about her loved ones?
She wouldn't, and she isn't, and I am so glad for her. On that note, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get back into the rest of Devon and Virginia's segments, and then right into Ben and Sarah.
And we're back. So there's some non-value stuff that Devon and Virginia get into. Virginia has like a list of small
Yes.
grievances. These were sort of funny and petty.
These were funny and petty. I sort of think these wouldn't have mattered to her if the bigger things didn't occur. But she's like, I have a list and I'm just going to name them all.
Yeah. I think that Virginia liked that Devon worked with kids and like he seemed like this sort of soft, gentle, supportive guy. And she just like held on to that. But then there were all these other like icks to her. Like all this stuff were just like icky little things.
Yeah.
That she just kind of turned her off. She says that there was a note from an ex-girlfriend on his nightstand at his hotel right before the wedding. And Devon says that this woman was not his ex in his mind. She's one of his best friends. She's dating or together with one of his groomsmen. They did date in the past.
That seemed fine to me.
Right. Like, I'm not stressed about this. They're friends. Like, I think she can write him a card. 3 or 4 days before the wedding, Virginia ran into Devon's mom at a basketball game, and Devon's mom told her that her boss had given them a $1,000 check as a gift. We learned about this a little bit after the wedding. Virginia mentioned it in her exit interviews. Devon never brought this up to her, and he says that he was planning to give her the check after they actually got married. This is plausible to me.
Me too. I mean,
I assume he was planning to return it if they didn't get married, which was extremely possible, and in fact is what happened.
That's the thing. Like, I see why maybe she was minorly annoyed that he didn't bring it up, but I also see why he wouldn't bring it up because they're not married. So, like, if they don't get married, they're not going to get wedding gifts.
Right. Like, I can, sure, I can definitely imagine being like, oh, isn't this a nice gift that we got? Like, if we get married, like, I'll put it in our account.
Yeah.
But I can see not thinking to mention it since it wasn't really, like, real yet.
Right.
Virginia, this last one is another one where I'm like, I actually don't know who to side with here. Virginia says that that last weekend was Devon's birthday and she made him like a whole big birthday present with hundreds of dollars of gift cards and his favorite color in it and his school color, all the good colors, balloons, presents. And when she brought it over, she asked for help bringing it in, and he asked if she could just do it. And then after he came and helped, he said, you could have gotten that. And I think that what she's upset about are just those comments that she went to all this trouble for him and then he acted like it was a burden.
I think what she's speaking to here is that she felt there was a gap in efforts, that like she is bringing so much to this relationship and she is making all of this effort for him and he kind of can't bother for her.
Yeah.
I don't know that this particular incident is so damning.
Right. Like, it doesn't seem like the nicest thing to do, but it's not like grounds for breakup. But I could see it being the thing that like after everything just kind of pisses you off.
Well, that's the thing. I think at a certain point you are just like annoyed at someone, and if you feel like they are kind of taking advantage of you or that you are compromising again and again and again, and then someone does something like a little annoying, it escalates in your mind.
I could see him also being kind of like teasing her. Like, you could have gotten it.
Yes. Yeah, this is, again, not a capital offense by any means.
Not a big deal. But she has this list. She's like, and another thing. Devon is like, I don't get it. Like, I still speak highly of Virginia to this day. And that's just how I'm going to approach this. And Virginia says that she hasn't felt loved or respected by him in the last year. So presumably since filming.
Filming.
He says that he actually wanted to be with her after the show. And she's like, what?
And she says, oh, I wanted to be with her, but I didn't answer her calls.
So basically, it seems like she called him a few times right after the wedding, like the week after, to talk. And he's like, all you did was just like list off all these complaints like you're doing now and talk about our family issues and stuff. And so he just stopped answering because he didn't want to deal with it. And then he told their friends that she ghosted him. And like, I understand being like, I thought I wanted to continue this relationship, but you seem different now. You're really mad at me.
This isn't productive.
I just don't want to do this anymore. But then, you kind of got to take ownership of the fact that you were the one who
to
cut
stop
contact.
responding. Yeah. And Devon's like, I never said that. And at this point, Molly and Madison jump in and say, actually, you told both of us that.
Molly and Madison are truly just like roving the Minneapolis bars as a duo of truth seekers. They are getting the tea. They are getting the gossip. Like, did you do that? We heard you did that. How did things go with that other person? Oh, interesting. They're filing it all away for the reunion.
Devon accuses Madison and Molly of coming up to him, quote, very drunk and asking about his business. And to that, I have to say, they're trying to get the goss, Devon. And if you gave it to them, then like, I don't know, man.
And first of all, I 100% believe this. I can very much imagine Molly and Madison drunk at a bar, rolling up to Devon and being like, what's going on with Virginia? Like, are you guys
for sure
talking?
But it's just so not damning. I'm like, yeah, they were at a bar.
Right.
It's a place for drinking.
They were at a bar. They asked if you were probably still like in contact with
and you
your ex
told
that
them,
you all know, and you told them
she ghosted you. Like,
did you hope they would be too drunk to remember this incident? Because that's clearly not the case. And Madison is like, why would I ask about your business? I don't care. But I'm like, you guys asked. You definitely asked.
Oh, they definitely asked. Yeah. And I don't even fault them. That's
no,
fine.
I'm glad they did.
It seems like the whole cast was just like repeatedly going out in various groups.
This is something we sort of heard about. We've heard about Minneapolis is that it's a big, small city and like everyone knows each other. The reunion could not have emphasized that more. And this always happens to some extent that the cast keeps hanging out. But like the way that they made it sound like their life was just a constant, rotation of party buses and bars, and they're all together at different bars and party buses and excursions. I personally believe that he was telling people that Virginia ghosted him because that's how he felt in his heart. But that is not, it seems like, what happened.
No, and you know what? I'm glad they didn't date after. They shouldn't. They're absolutely not aligned.
No, as we said, none of them should have dated after.
Exactly.
Nick at this point is clearly like, well, this conversation has run its course. Great job, guys, seeing this through to your wedding day. Amazing work. Let's move on.
I love the moments where Nick just all of a sudden decided to put in a little transition. He was like, well, we're in the middle of an argument, but incredible job, both of you. And over to Sarah and Ben.
And then they both have that classic reunions look of just looking like really worked up and like they have a lot more rage to get out, but they know they can't say anything. They're just kind of like panting in their seats.
I will say that this cast was fairly well behaved. There was not a crazy amount of crosstalk and inaudible yelling. So thank you.
This was like a soothing balm for me after watching the
Women Tell All.
Yeah. Amazing for my eardrums. So Sarah and Ben are next. Ben has clearly prepared.
He's like the only man who prepared, and he didn't do it that well, but he did have a little speech.
And we know that someone gave him some great advice on preparing for this moment, and boy did he. he takes the lead with a little monologue, his little like notes app apology that he memorized and delivers verbally. He's like, I knew coming in that I had privilege, and I wasn't proud of that. And then it turned out to be something that was really important to Sarah. And our initial conversations about social issues, I was embarrassed how they went. And now I have greater awareness about these things. And that's thanks in large part to Sarah. And I know it's kind of sad that it took someone to make me think that way, but I really owe you a lot. And that's something I knew was important to work
And
on.
Sarah is just sitting there stone faced, like with hatred in her eyes.
Yeah. She is not looking at him like, oh my God, he finally gets it. She's looking at him like, who is this stranger who is saying these things that he clearly does not believe? Like, is anyone going to stop him like from saying this? So Nick asked Sarah why she said yes to Ben's proposal, given their differences on these issues.
Which I think is a good question. Yeah.
And Sarah says, well, as humans, we only learn and grow. And so and I don't have all the answers. So I just wanted an open discussion with him. And out of the pods, I just never felt it progressed. I didn't feel that he was curious about it. And ultimately, she says, I just feel like I didn't know him really.
Yikes.
Yeah. Which, I mean, fair. Because whatever she brings up, he just like says exactly what she wants to hear in the least convicted way possible.
I know. And I do think that explains a lot. That's a good way for her to put it. Like the lack of curiosity. Like even if he was going to yes her, he wasn't interested in actually interrogating those beliefs or interrogating the structures that he might be a part of that might reinforce values that she, feels
right, like you
are
could
problematic.
imagine her being okay. Like sometimes, people end up in these ideologically different relationships because neither of them cares that much. Sometimes it's because they both really enjoy digging into the ins and outs of those issues, and they have both a lot of curiosity about it.
Yeah.
And he wasn't like her in that way. He didn't want to talk about that stuff. And I think that feeling like you don't know someone very well or they don't want to talk in depth about things that matter to you are great reasons not to get married after 6 weeks of knowing them.
Yeah. And I think that the fact that they were physically attracted to each other and they were like basically seemed to be one of the only couples who was papered over a lot at the beginning.
Yeah. And I mean, imagine going on Love is Blind and then marrying someone you barely know because you think they're hot. Like that would be an incredible move. So Nick also questions why Ben said he didn't remember his church's stance on gay marriage.
Nick out here with the good questions.
I mean, I was like, he's asking a lot of the questions I wanted answered. And Ben has been listening to our podcast. I'm kidding. This probably was filmed before we talked about this, but he says basically what we said, which is he didn't remember because it probably wasn't something that he even noticed at the time because it didn't affect him or anyone that he cared about in a really personal way. And so he just didn't really care enough to remember. And I think that's probably true.
I agree.
And also maybe he missed that sermon. He's like, maybe I missed it. I don't know. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I didn't care. I don't know. None of this looks great for me.
But also, I'm not proud. I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud.
Then Vanessa brings up the girl from TikTok.
She does a great transition. She says, another thing you didn't remember was the girl on TikTok.
So many things Ben doesn't remember.
All these gaps.
Like having a relationship with a goldfish. Every time he swims around the bowl, he's like, what?
He's like, what did I do?
What did I do?
I don't know.
Views on I couldn't possibly remember that. That happened at least 3 weeks ago. So Sarah says that she was very concerned about the girl on TikTok at the time and the very vague but serious sounding allegations she was making about Ben from when they dated a few years ago. But she chose to trust Ben. And then she says, knowing what I know now about Ben, I'm not surprised about the TikTok.
Yikes. But we don't really dig into what she knows now.
Well, but they do press on this,
They
but I think
do.
that she is just referring to how he ended their relationship.
Yeah. How they ended their relationship and the fact that she was alerted to the fact that he used to leave YouTube business cards on the bedside tables.
Yeah,
of
that
women
I
he
don't
hooked
think
up
she
with.
gets into.
No, she doesn't get into that, but we do know that that is something she found out after the fact because she's spoken about it in like interviews.
You know, we know that, but yeah, it's true that that doesn't come up here. After she says basically after the wedding day, she actually did still have hope that they could date,
which was surprising to me given what she said on the wedding day.
I mean, this is how actually I should be more in the know by now. They always at the altar like, I'm so close to being there, but we just haven't had enough time. And then afterward, still in their gown or their
They're
suit,
like, I hate
they're
this
like,
person.
I hate this person. It could never work. They're going to be a bad mom / person / they're stupid or deceptive. And then you find out that they dated or hooked up for like 6 months after at the reunion. And you're like, what is happening? Which one do I believe? So I guess this is actually a classic.
Yeah, you're so right. And the whole time Sarah is speaking, her sister Lisa and her partner Kelsey are in the audience just nodding along supportively like, that's our girl.
Yes, she's doing amazing. I wonder if they did flashcards with her before this appearance. She says that they were sort of seeing each other, but she had to finish out a travel nursing contract in Nashville, and Ben knew about this. So she was going to move back, I think, in 3 months.
Yeah.
And live in Minnesota again. And so they had talked about him coming to live in Nashville with her for a while because he's has like a remote job. And I wonder if it's the YouTube job. And she said, well, even though things, we didn't get married, maybe we could still do this. And he was like, yeah. So they had this plan to have Ben fly to Nashville and stay with her for 2 weeks to 2 months.
I guess like they were going to play it by ear, see how things went.
Yeah. They had been living together for a little while post-wedding. They're going to live together a little bit in Nashville, see how it went. And so they had made plans that he was going to fly and like use her car while he was there. She drives the like 12-hour drive to Nashville. When she arrives, she sees that Ben has removed her from Find My Friends.
Yikes.
She texts Ben and he sends her 3 very scripted, in her words, apologies. And then she didn't hear from him for a month and a half.
It also seems that she never responded to these apologies because she was angry.
Yes, it does seem that way. So this in itself is
wild.
And what comes out from Ben is that he thinks they were already broken up when she went to Nashville. And
what it seems to me is that they just weren't fully official, but that they had plans to explore this relationship. Like, it's very clear. I believe Sarah when she says they had planned for him to fly to Nashville and be with her for at least 2 weeks. So
right,
Ben,
like
even if you're not in a
specific.
relationship, you had plans that were romantic together.
And he doesn't really know how to, like, that is such a specific plan for her to have expected that if he doesn't recognize that, then I would expect a lot of like, what, like, we never talked about that. Like, or that was something we talked about when we thought we were getting married, but then we didn't get married, and I thought that we were both deciding to move on. He gets like kind of squirrely about it. He's like, my understanding is that we were broken up after you left for Nashville, and so I wanted to cut off contact because that's just what I do when I have a breakup, and I sent you an apology. Well, what's the apology for?
Also, I was like, can we read these apologies? I want to read the apology texts.
Pull those sheets of screenshots out of your armpit, Ben. I want to know what happened. Or Sarah says, your apologies just have no weight. You use my words in them and they're very scripted, and I just don't really believe you. And he says, well, you ghosted me for 2 months. And she's like, well, you were supposed to come to Nashville and live with me, and then you just didn't come, and you took me off Find My Friends. instead. And he says he thought they ended things the night before. So when he's like pressed on this, he's like, the plan existed until the night before Sarah left.
When we ended things. And Sarah at this point sort of gives up. She's just like looks so frustrated. Like to me, the look she was giving gave, there is nothing I can say. This man is just going to gaslight me.
I mean, what can you, like, if you were present at that dinner and there was no breakup, and now he's going to come on TV and say there was, like, what?
Right.
What can
You're
you
just
do?
getting in a back and forth. And Lauren, who is very close with Sarah, finally steps in and is like, well, that wasn't her understanding, Ben.
That wasn't her understanding.
We
Ben.
also learned that Sarah had told Taylor that when she came to visit her, that she probably wasn't going to be able to stay in the apartment because Ben was going to be there. Like, there clearly was an understanding that Ben was going to be there. And what it seems like to me is that Ben is a coward and he panicked and didn't want to move forward with whatever gray area they were in. And so he sent her a text instead of calling her or going down to Nashville and having another conversation.
I agree. Like, he thought that this was an easy out.
Easy
And
out. Yeah.
I can see what she's saying. Like, it does kind of seem like the kind of thing that a player, a fuckboy who is used to kind of love bombing and then breaking hearts would do. Would just be like, yeah, I'll say all the things she wants to hear right up until the moment where I block her or I take her off Find My Friends, where she moved away and it's too hard for her to like come confront me. Like, I'll wait until that convenient moment and then I'll pretend that I never said all that stuff to her.
Well, exactly.
That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
But maybe we're all just being so unfair to Ben.
I mean, Sarah says
so nice.
she feels like she was love bombed and she fell for it. The other thing that comes up is that after these texts, they did not speak for a while. And the next time Sarah heard from Ben, he was reaching out to tell her that Jimmy, he does not disclose the name, but she eventually does, had let him know that it was probably a good idea to be on good terms with Sarah. So he thought they should do that and also maybe brainstorm about what those questions that might be at the reunion.
Yeah, you should be on the same page for the reunions.
Which, like, sure, man. I mean, yeah. That also, why do you need Jimmy to tell you that, like, it's probably a good idea to not be in, like, active conflict heading into...
I know. In past seasons, men have not needed a previous, star of the show
I think Ben might
to
just
tell
be
them
dumb.
how to come off well. Like, yeah, you come crawling back like a few weeks before, you send a conciliatory text and you're like, hey, we should clear the air before the reunion. I'm sorry about all the horrible shit I did to you. I hope you're doing okay now. Let's be chill. Let's talk it through. Like, that's
right. Or like, hey, I mean, yeah, doesn't take a fucking genius. But I love that he is so not smooth that he's like, hey, I was talking to Jimmy and Jimmy said we should be cool. So I guess, should we? And Sarah makes the astute point that's like, she's like, I wasn't bothered that Jimmy gave him this extremely obvious advice. I was bothered that he's only reaching out to me after this, like, kind of traumatic end because Jimmy gave him this advice. She's like, he should have just reached out to me like a human.
I'm glad that she is not involved with him anymore. These women need to be separated from these men. Speaking of women who need to be separated from men on this show, I could use that as a transition to almost any of the couples.
Yeah.
But in this case, I'm talking about Monica and Joey. Vanessa.
Wow.
Kicks things off.
I think Joey has had the most precipitous fall.
I personally feel vindicated by how much worse he looks with every drop.
It's crazy.
Because it doesn't explain or excuse all of the things that Nicole said to Monica. about Joey, or even more so about Monica and her judgment. But Joey was not such the little angel, was he? He wasn't such the little victim. Maybe Nicole even had a point about our Joey here. So Vanessa asked Monica if she ever really expressed to Joey how she felt about him, because he said that, like, at the altar, that was the first time she said, "I love you." And Monica basically says that it's true, she hadn't, and they hadn't said that to each other, but that wasn't necessarily something that you need to feel love or to show love, which he wasn't doing. And she never felt wanted or loved in the relationship.
She says, you shouldn't have to tell a fiance to want to touch you and to want to be by you, which is like the saddest thing I've ever heard. And she says that watching the season back was like a slap in the face, and it was incredibly embarrassing for her because it felt so obvious to her that he just wasn't into her the whole time.
Yeah, she's like, I couldn't see at the time, but like watching back, I'm like, this man is not interested in you romantically. He's just not. And it's heartbreaking to think of her having that experience that I think as viewers, many of us started to have as the season went on, which is like, he's not into you. Like, get away from him. But when you're in it, it makes me so sad to think of her hearing and being convinced, like, oh, I'm just not a touchy guy. That isn't important to me. I don't want to put sex at the center of our relationship.
He could have said it. Like, he could have said, there are people who get engaged on the show. This has happened plenty of times. And they try, and it's just apparent that they can't get there on a physical level, and they break up.
Yeah.
Like, that's okay. I actually would respect that more.
Yeah, to candidly be like, hey, normally sex is something that I like want to have and enjoy with a partner, and I am worried that neither of us is really wanting to take our relationship to that level, or we're not clicking there in some way, or maybe I'm just not feeling it. Like, it's uncomfortable, but it's worse to try to convince her that it's actually just not something that is part of how you express yourself in romantic relationships. Right. And she should just accept that this is how your romantic love is going to be shown.
Also, instead of owning this, instead of Joey just being like, you know what, I should have been more honest about the fact that something was missing, but I really wanted us to be able to get there, he says, yeah, you know what, you're right. We really couldn't get out of the friend zone because of her sister.
Oh my God. I screamed.
Shouted. I screamed. Sir, what? That's not a thing. That's not a thing. Like, I would have wanted to fuck her so much more if her sister was nice to me.
What are you talking about?
What the hell are you talking about, sir?
When he started that sentence, we couldn't get out of the friend zone, I was like nodding along, like, yep. And then he says, because of her sister.
I truly screamed.
Fell out of my chair. The turn that he took, like halfway through that sentence, I was off balance. It's just an
objectively unhinged thing to say.
Get out of here. Like, you were already well into the part of your relationship.
Right. Oh, was her sister there being mean to you in Honduras when you were on a sexy vacation?
And I'm sorry, like the way that he covers himself in like virtue. He's like, family is just my number one value. So the fact that her sister was really not welcoming to me made me not want to get down with Monica romantically wise.
Just an insane thing to say.
I'm sorry, Joey, when you found out that her sister didn't like you, what did you say? Do you remember? I'll remind you. It was, that's okay. Not everyone has to like me. You did not give a flying fuck if she liked you.
No, until he was like, this is my out. This is my out. He's like, this is the one clear thing that isn't my, that it doesn't indict me in any way, that was done to me. And I am going to take this all the way to the bank.
Yeah. He's like, I'm the victim of this, clearly.
And I was proud of Nick Lachey in this moment, actually, because Nick follows up and steps in and says, maybe Nicole just saw your lack of commitment and was calling it out. Have you considered that?
Yeah.
Thank
he's
you,
like,
Nick.
Chicken or the egg situation here. Like, which came first, your lack of interest or her sister saying maybe you weren't that interested. Like, I don't know. And I kind of think that Monica's sister was right about this specific thing.
Yeah, I think that Monica's sister has bad delivery and clearly is sometimes just doesn't express herself in a way that is particularly kind and respectful to Monica. But did she have a correct read on Joey? I think we're seeing yes.
Yeah, I think he is an actor. Like, I think that he did portray himself in a certain light that turned out to be quite misleading.
Also, I think that the show misled us about Joey because we have seen a deleted scene that has been making the rounds where Monica meets Joey's family, and all of his family and friends keep expressing surprise that Joey is this deep into the process. And they're like, we're so happy to see it because he repeatedly told us he's like not interested in marriage.
And she's like, what?
She's like, oh, this is the first time I'm hearing of this. They're basically like, he was traumatized by past relationships and he's very scared of marriage and like maybe doesn't want it at all. Like, I don't know, man. That seems like relevant information.
I cannot believe that he did not tell. Like, that is something that is a big deal for him, to the point that like his family and friends independently brought it up when they met Monica and he didn't tell her about it. Yeah. So to be fair, maybe Monica had some information that we didn't have, but
well, I do think that's probably why she said no at the altar, because she didn't trust him.
Yeah, nor should she have.
Yeah.
Monica also, I think, had the same reaction to the wedding footage that we did, because she says that she understood that he wanted to gather information and that he wasn't necessarily sure about a life together, but it felt like he was just trying to figure out if he liked her at all. And that's not really what the process was supposed to be. And then she says, watching back some of this footage, I'm having hard conversations with loved ones, and he's just jumping around and throwing a football.
And that
she
is
wanted
exactly
to shake
what we
herself
saw.
And be like, girl, he's not into you. Yeah, that is exactly. Like, he didn't
I wanted to hug Monica during this segment. I felt so sad for her, but also happy for her that she's seeing things clearly and can just shut the fucking door on this guy. He's such a loser. On that note, we're going to take another quick break. And when we get back, we will finish out Monica and Joey's segments and get into Lauren and Dave and the Alex, Madison, Mason, and Meg of it all.
And we're back. So Monica does have some more updates of things that came out post-filming. She says that a month ago, she found out that right after the Pod Squad meetup, when she and Joey were still engaged, he slid into another cast member's DMs, and she's not sure what was said, but if she had known that at the time, she says she would have walked away from the relationship. And Joey says that he reached out to a few people after the hangout, but this references to a message he sent to Madison, of course. And he said, like, I said, hey, it was good seeing you. I like your pink hair, because Madison showed up with pink hair to the mixer. And Madison says, it actually said, like, loving the pink hair, wish we could have talked more.
Which contains a little more.
It's a little flirtier. And I think, like, come on. Like, we all saw the way that the men's, like, heads whipped around when Madison walked in.
Oh, these men were shook that Madison was hot.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them were like, this woman seems damaged. I don't want to date her. And then they saw that she was hot.
Yeah.
Like, that is just the read that I am getting from what we've seen. And Madison also says that she and Joey, I guess, dated for a while in the pods. Yeah. She says, you know, it was really a friend vibe between us. It never, like, got super far, but it was the kind of thing where we, you know, in the pods, when you're dating someone and then neither of you rank each other high, you just sort of, like, disappear.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense that they would have talked to each other at the Pod Squad hangout. It's a little weirder that he slid into her DMs.
Yeah.
He has plausible deniability, but, like, I don't know.
Yeah. And finally he's like, yeah, I was trying to be friendly, but maybe that was inappropriate. I didn't see it that way at the time. Monica also says that for a while after the wedding, they were kind of acting like they were in a relationship. They were hanging out all the time, texting.
She was
Vanessa asked
going
if,
to family functions with
yeah,
him.
helping him with his apartment. Um, maybe setting up one tiny knickknack on his mantelpiece so that it's not a completely bare box of white and stainless steel. Vanessa asks if it got physical, and Monica says yes a couple times. And Joey scoffs and says no one time.
I was disgusted. Like, fuck you, dude.
Like, to scoff as if like, oh, I would never touch
I
that.
would never touch her.
Just one time less than she said. One time. Like, she basically said twice, and he says once. Okay, man.
I got the sense that he was saying they only had sex one time, but they probably hooked up twice. That's my read.
Probably true. But like,
but also, why do you feel the need to clarify that? Like, oh, I need it to be known I only did it one time with her.
well, right.
Like, do you want a fucking prize? Like, it would be so insane for you to get physical with this gorgeous woman that you lived with for 2 months. Like, what are you talking about?
well, the other, like, yes, like, obviously that's
It's just so
wild.
insulting.
It's very insulting, but it's also just funny because he's not even really denying anything. Like,
I
she
know.
says they got physical a couple times, and he says once, and
Just
I'm like,
point
even
of clarification. We only did it once.
he's like, oh, please don't insult me. It was one time. Like, she basically said that it was 2 times. Like, you know what I mean? It's not such a vast world of difference.
What do you
here.
think changes between one time or 2 times?
Yeah, and I think that her response probably has to do, like, there can be a muddiness of like a couple times we made out, like
Right.
another time we like went on, like whatever. And he's here scoffing, like, I would never do that, but I did do that with her once.
He scoffs at women multiple times. He scoffs at Madison also.
He does. He's a big scoffer. That's the thing about like Joey's whole goofy act, is that it's so cute and like lovable and seems so good natured. But then to see him turning that, like when it like gets a little bit like sour,
it actually, it like gives me chills a little bit.
Right. It's really unpleasant. It's like, no, that persona it's not supposed to go along with treating women this disrespectfully.
Right.
It feels like a mask or something. It makes it feel like a mask. So I was really put off by that. But anyway, Joey apparently told Monica during this time that Madison was coming on to him at the bars when they all are running into each other at the bars. And Monica eventually saw Madison out and asked her about it directly. And Madison is like, no, that's a crazy lie. I would not do that. I didn't do that. And so she and Monica pulled Joey aside together. And he told Monica he had never said it in the first place. And I was like,
I mean, I'm sorry. This is wild.
He never
Monica's like,
said it?
why would I make that up? Why would she make that up?
why would
It makes
she make
no sense. Also, I'm sorry. Who do I believe more in this situation? Madison and Monica. Like, Joey has every incentive, A, to present a skewed version of things to Monica, and then also to try to save face to Monica and Madison by deflecting. Like,
that, honestly, the only thing that would have made me doubt at all Madison's story is if Joey said, you have been coming on to me.
right. If he was willing to say that to her face in front of Monica.
Right. And the fact that instead, when he's confronted by both of them, he's like, I never said that. Okay, so you were definitely lying.
Right.
Because if Madison had been coming on to you, then
you would have just said, what are you talking about? Yes, you did. You hit on me. I mean, I think Madison was friendly towards him, and he thought she was hot.
yeah. Like, and there's a lot of weirdness about how this came to be an issue at all. He's like, I have no interest in Madison, but Monica was worried that I had interest in Madison. And So it was like an issue in our relationship.
And
And
Madison is like, it's giving interest.
is giving interest. And she's like, well, why would she think that you had interest in me if you never gave her reason to think that? And at some point, I think even Nick and Vanessa follow up on this. They're like, no, please, like, explain where Monica got this idea.
And Madison also says that she confronted Joey about this without Monica. And Joey said, well, maybe it was a joke. And Molly says she also witnessed this exchange between Madison and Joey.
Yeah. But what I wanted to say was that we never get an answer to this. Why?
Oh, yeah, no. He doesn't
We
have
never
one.
get an answer to why Monica would have this insecurity about Madison if he didn't give her reason.
Clearly, he implied to Monica that Madison was coming on to him and then didn't want Madison to think that he had said that. So he was like, I didn't say that. And then he was like, well, maybe I was joking about it. I think, this is a real lesson to women. You got to travel in the buddy system. You have to ask for accountability in the buddy system, because then you always have another woman to be like, I was there. I witnessed this. It is not a he said, she said situation.
And guess who's always there? Molly and or Madison. Yeah. They were always there at the bar, and they saw what your man said.
Thank you to these women.
Yeah, so Monica eventually says that her truth is that she put in effort that wasn't reciprocated, and she thinks Joey is an amazing son and brother and friend, but as a romantic partner, he has a lot more to learn. He wasn't good in that respect to her. She says, I'm so ready to shut that door, and we are humans on this earth together, and that is okay. She's okay with walking the same earth as him, and I think that's generous.
I think it is too.
Joey says he thinks she's amazing, and he wants the best for her, and this was crazy.
He's like, I love you so much.
He says for the first time, I love you to Monica. He never said that even at their wedding.
And Monica is just giving him a fucking death stare the whole time. She's like, I just granted you the ability to be on the same earth as me. Now you love me? Get the fuck out.
They got engaged. They date. They meet families. They go to Honduras. They go to the altar. He does not say, I love you. What does he say? He says, I have a lot of love for you.
I hate this.
We get here. He says, I love you. I feel so vindicated that all my little off moments with Joey brought us here.
I know you
to the full mask off Joey sucks moment.
Like Monica, perhaps I have trouble reading people sometimes, and I like to think I'm a good read of character, but sometimes, Claire, I need you to step in.
We all have our blind spots,
and I should learn my lesson. I should never assume the best in a man. I think that's
assume the best.
My misandry is coming back out.
We should start every season with all the men just on enemy by default.
Yeah, and then they have to work themselves out of the hole.
I don't want it to come to that. This season has made me so, as the mother of a son and another son, 2 sons, as the mother of
chilled
2
to
sons,
the bone.
I don't want to start out with a negative expectation of men and boys. But what am I to do when Love is Blind keeps casting these guys?
I know. It is that as a mother of a son, that sounds terrifying. You need to start having them watch this as like don't be that.
I know that seems like a solution, but there's really only one solution here. I need to be in full control of every life decision made by my sons
for the rest of their lives. Fair and good.
Yeah. When they're married, basically I will be married to their spouses, and I will be the one who decides all major things about their relationships.
I think that's very healthy and reasonable.
Speaking of very closely involved female family members, next we talk to Lauren, Dave, and Molly. Nick kicks this segment off with, so Dave, what's wrong with you? And Dave tries so hard to laugh like he's a good sport, and he's in on it.
Dave looks ill the whole time. Yeah. And he has shown up in one version of himself. He has shown up as like the Dave that was at the bar during the Pod Squad meetup.
That's a good call. Do you think that he had a little
Something to
help
drink. I don't
to
know.
get through?
Maybe a beta
He
blocker. So I was
his cheeks were
very,
so red.
he was
Like
terrified. And
he was ruddy.
I'm going to say that that Dave's demeanor during all of this would have played a lot better for me had he not very recently given a Vulture interview in which he said basically, I'm not sorry for a single thing, and I do still believe that Lauren couldn't have been ready for love after she had casual sex.
And he felt he put himself up as such a victim in that interview.
And then he showed up to this reunion being like, I did wrong.
Yeah. I wonder what happened here. Like, truly, did something happen in between this interview and taping the reunion? It's possible, given the timing that he kind of describes of his like come to Jesus moment about the ex. Or did he think this stage is one where you kind of, if you're the villain, you have to come and show up and just apologize and wait for it to be over, and that's the only way to get the heat off of you, which is true.
It's true. Yeah.
I mean, and then you can like get your more sympathetic to yourself narrative out there in less high pressure avenues, like maybe a little Q&A and Vulture. I don't know.
I think it was misguided, because I think you need to maintain that, or you at least need to say sorry for some things in that Vulture interview. You can't appear to be a completely different person. I'm like, what shifted? How? I need to know also when that Vulture interview was conducted in relation to this. But it was real whiplash for me as a reader of that Vulture interview.
It did not set you up to expect the performance that he gives here,
and it also didn't make me believe him.
No, I don't. Lauren doesn't believe him.
Lauren doesn't believe him either.
Maybe Vanessa believes him. By the end, Vanessa's like, tell her how you feel.
Vanessa just wants Vanessa loves love so much. She just wants everyone to get married and have babies.
She's like, if you guys make up right now, you could be having a baby by the end of next year. Come on.
And Lauren is like, I don't believe a word that comes out of this man's mouth, as she shouldn't.
So the first real question is about Dave's sister.
Shocker.
Appropriately. It was going to be about Dave's sister no matter what. It's just a question of whether they brought it up or Dave brought her up.
We didn't get enough information about Dave's sister, though. I didn't get my questions answered.
We learned very little. Dave says that her fear was that he would be shown in a bad light. And, well, here we are.
And everyone laughs. That was the only decent self-deprecating joke that Dave made.
And she says that his sister struggles watching back, seeing how Lauren was hurt and how everything went down. And it's just like, well, she could have just like talked to her on the phone, you know? Like,
it still doesn't make sense. It still doesn't make sense, because as Lauren brings up repeatedly in this segment, like multiple times Dave said, if they wanted me, if I really wanted them to show up for me, they would.
Right.
So,
well, again, it's the Dave two-step.
Yeah.
If you're mad at my family, don't blame my family. It's really my decision. If you're mad at me, don't blame me. It's really my family's decision.
And he does both during this, and it's bizarre. So Lauren is like, well, you know, watching back the season, I just started to see that I was light years ahead of Dave when it came to emotional maturity. And Dave is like, I agree.
What else can you do but agree to that? Unless you're talking to Vulture, in which case you're just like, the real takeaway is that
She's a big old slut and I'm a victim.
They didn't talk for the better part of a year, but apparently they've been talking a little more over the last couple of weeks.
Did Dave talk to Jimmy?
Did Jimmy just like blast out some DMs to all these dudes? He's like,
look, guys, I'm seeing that you're getting a bit of a rough go from the public.
Step into my office. Lauren says that a couple weeks ago, Dave sent her a kind text about her fuck buddy. What a sentence. And the clarity that Dave has recently gained about this man who basically ruined their engagement. And she appreciated that. But she's like, I didn't like need it because I've seen it the same way the whole time, but I was glad that you got that clarity.
Yeah, she's like, I've been telling you this.
Right. This is what made me wonder about the Vulture thing. Like, is there any possibility that the Vulture interview was conducted
way earlier than we thought?
moment
Maybe.
when he suddenly realized stuff about the ex
But what did
that
he
changed his
suddenly
mind.
realize? Like, it doesn't really make sense because, as we've said, this fuck buddy was identifying himself in the public before the show even started airing. So,
Well, but this, I mean, the timeline here is such that this all might have been for Dave a response to seeing him start to identify himself, right? Like that's
yeah,
only in the last like month or so.
I guess. But then, so then I'm like, when was the Vulture interview conducted?
Right.
That's my
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, because it doesn't, I don't know. It's also just a little bit odd. Like, I don't know. It also doesn't change the fact that he put zero weight in what Lauren was telling him about her experience.
Right. And like would not let her
Even speak to his friends. Like, I mean, the whole thing is just totally bizarre.
Yeah, it doesn't really exonerate him that he didn't really believe her at all or listen to her, give her any opportunity to clear her name. And then a year later, he hears a couple sketchy things about this guy. And now he's like, well, I guess he was completely lying. And
Right. He's also making this fuck buddy sound like a crazy supervillain. Like, he was making up wild stories and brainwashing all of his friends. And I'm like, what? You know, I need more. I need more clarity.
yeah, he says that the guy was planting this specifically in my friends' heads, people he knows I know, and his friend that he knows my sister. It's like he's diabolically going around planting seeds. Maybe
Maybe. I haven't I like I really would like to hear from some of his friends and his sister. Like,
I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm starting to want the fuck buddy to go on a podcast.
I know, me too. I really wasn't interested, and now I am. I'm like, wait, because now this is being painted as if there was one big supervillain who was this fuck buddy, and he was like going to great lengths to deceive Dave, even though we know and it's been confirmed that this guy had told Dave that someone on the cast, that he had dated someone on the cast and was dumped to go on Love is Blind. So Dave went into the pods knowing that there was someone.
Right. He just didn't expect to end up with that person, and then he found out that he had. I
I don't know. I don't know how to Dave is shifty.
we're still in this position where Dave is sort of the puppeteer of 4 or 5 personas that we
Right.
only know through Dave, and he is like telling us different stories about what they're saying or doing behind the scenes and how they're interacting with each other and with Dave. And Dave is the only one we've heard from directly or seen on our screens. And like when he does a wild shift in how he describes one of them, it's like, okay, do I believe what you said about this person before, what you're saying now? I have
It just
nothing
leaves
else
me
to go
unsure.
on.
Like,
It's-
maybe he is fully telling the truth, but I
Right.
feel confused.
Or you could just be doing shadow puppetry with
Exactly.
some
And
projections of your
swinging-
own making.
Right, spinning things the way that they're most useful to you in this moment.
Yeah, he's still saying the same stuff about his sister. And I'm like, I don't even believe what you say about your sister anymore. He does say that he could have supported Lauren a lot more, which is true. And he's like, I saw how the other, like Sarah, on, during the season was more supportive of Ben when she heard rumors. And I really admired that. And Lauren's just really frustrated. She's like, I was so honest with you, but you chose to believe everyone but me when it came to this, even though we were in a really strong place when we got back to Minneapolis. And Dave is like, I agree. It's just that, like, in the last 2 to 3 weeks, the truth about this guy has come to light. He's been unveiled. Okay.
Like, okay.
And so again, yeah, no accountability. It's just like, what could he have done until this guy was unveiled and the truth about him came to light?
That's the thing.
Nothing.
Dave arrives giving the attitude of like a contrite person, but he actually does not take a lot of accountability.
Yeah. He's like, I guess I should have stuck up for her more, but like What else was I supposed
This man
to
was
believe?
brainwashing everyone, and what could I have done?
He brainwashed Dave by proxy.
And also, I did want my friends and family to meet Lauren, but they just refused, and that's their fault, but also not their fault because they're perfect.
Well, yeah, and they would have done anything for me if I'd asked them to, but not that, but they would have.
I was
Vanessa
proud
asked-
of Vanessa in this moment.
Yeah.
Vanessa is like, well, Dave, do you think you were just looking for an out from the relationship and this was your out? And Dave insists that he wasn't. He's like, I've always loved Lauren since the day we met. I loved her so much I didn't speak to her for a year. Even out at bars. I didn't even acknowledge her. The love was too strong.
Well, he was like Captain Wentworth, you know?
Yes.
Or Mr. Knightley. If he loved her less, he might have been able to say more.
And we all know Mr. Knightley famously just ghosted Emma and refused to acknowledge her presence.
Well, this is just like when Captain Wentworth was dancing with Louisa, you know, and taking her on walks down the seawall at Lyme or whatever. And poor Anne is like, he's forgotten me. He hasn't thought about our love in 7 years, but how wrong she was. The heart of man does not soon forget the woman that he loves. I'm just making up Jane Austen quotes now. Anyway, deep down, he loved her so much the whole time. And she's like, I just don't believe you. Basically.
Dave just also self-victimizes. He's like, I feel like I just really put myself out there and then it all came crashing down. I'm like, by whose hand, Dave?
Yeah, who did that?
Who made it crash? At this point, Nick is like, so guys, can we all agree that it is possible to have sex with someone casually and then meet someone and fall in love with them?
Maybe the next day even. Yeah. Daniel raises both hands. He's like, you have no idea what I was getting up to before I found love.
I feel like Daniel also is just like, these are my wife's besties. Like, I'm on the side of the ladies.
He is the classic husband in the group of girlfriends now.
Yeah.
Like, there's always like one or two guys that get married, and then they're like, these women are now sort of in my family. Like, I gotta stick up for them. Dave says that he feels like she's the one that got away. And Vanessa starts acting like he's gonna like re-propose or something on the spot, doing this like, tell her how you feel, Dave thing. He's like, I just can't do it right now.
Oh, why can't you, Dave? Why can't you?
Because he knows
He's
it would
full
be a
of shit.
lie. Wouldn't it be amazing if he did all of this to get out of marrying Lauren, and then while trying to sort of appease the masses who are enraged at his behavior, he finds himself accidentally getting re-engaged to her on television.
Lauren, to her credit, is like, you are a liar, basically. She says, to be honest, I just don't fully believe it. You had my phone number for the last year. We've seen each other at bars. You made no effort to show that in any capacity. You acted like I was making you choose between the devil and your family. Yes, Lauren.
Yeah, like he's saying the stuff that needs to be said.
And it's
right
bullshit.
now,
It has no weight behind it.
It's bullshit. She's still upset that he didn't have her meet his family and friends, and that he didn't give his sister the letter. He insists that he did give his sister Lauren's letter at a later date.
Just not the time that he said he was going to, because she says, I literally found the letter in your jacket pocket after you had dinner with her. And he's like,
oh, no,
well,
I gave it
yes,
to her
I didn't
another
give it
time.
to her that time, but I gave it to her another time, and she just had no reaction to it. And her mind was already made up. Okay. That she wouldn't even get on FaceTime. Like, I understand his friends and family being like, I in no way want to be on television. My mind is made up about that.
You know who doesn't understand
weirder.
that? You know who doesn't understand that?
Who?
Dave. It's like, your dad will only meet off camera. Piece of shit. Am I right? No, piece of shit.
What doesn't make sense to me is family and friends being like, I have my mind made up. I will not even get on a singular FaceTime call with this person that you are dating. And also going to, whether or not you get married, going to be in a public relationship with for a period of time on national television.
I mean, it really paints the picture at minimum that Dave and his family share a trait of being incredibly close-minded. Like that his fiance sent his sister a letter sort of explaining how much she loves Dave and wants a chance to get to know his family and kind of explain her side of the story. And his sister was apparently, according to Dave,
Unmoved.
Just completely unmoved. I find
alarming.
Alarming, if true. And either that is just sort of Dave, again, puppeteering these personas and none of these things really happened the way he's describing, or his family is like, they're extremely closed off, judgmental people. Because that's wild. But Lauren very generously is like, I don't think Dave is a narcissist or manipulator. You're welcome to that opinion, Lauren. Others are welcome to their own opinions. That's what it used to be like here in America. We'll see how long that lasts.
Oh, God.
And Dave wraps this up by saying that this is really a lesson to guys like Lauren's ex. You shouldn't mess around with the real things that he and Lauren and people like them are going through just to get on Netflix. Shame on you, sir. Don't meddle. You could ruin Dave's life, and no one deserves it less than Dave.
That Dave has learned the lesson of the fact that Dave is a victim of someone else's actions.
He brought it back around. He was like, and to conclude, I am a victim. Thank you.
And I do think that, like, Dave is getting it pummeled so hard in public. Like, this happens sometimes where we see the person who's getting it the hardest from the public. They don't want to go so hard on them at the reunion.
Well, also, those people usually come in prepared to roll over, which Dave does. And the big blow-ups are usually more with people who are blindsided. And so they're not really primed to be so conciliatory.
We don't get answers, however, about Molly seeing a girl all over Dave at a bar.
Hello?
Did that happen, and was it his sister?
Was it his sister? Do we have an eyewitness of his sister? Can you describe? Or was it someone else?
Yeah, Molly, we need answers from your friends. So they do at this point bring Molly into the end of the conversation. And Molly is like, look, I have no ill will towards you, Dave. But it was difficult to watch everything back and see you tell some lies, like, about our time in the pods. She says, like, Dave actually repeatedly told me that I was his number one. So that is why I thought that. But obviously, Molly is not upset about, like, losing out to Lauren on Dave. So she quickly pivots and is like, what I really want to say here is that Dave really could have done more to have his friends and family meet Lauren off camera. She's like, if he was begging them and they truly still wouldn't meet Lauren, then I stand by what I said, which was fuck your friends, because you deserve better friends.
Well, Dave deserves nothing, but he could have better friends than that. Maybe he has the friends he deserves. Maybe he has no friends and it's all just the people in his head who are talking to each other.
All of my friends.
All of my different personalities were talking about you, and we don't like you. We don't think you're good enough.
And
we
will not meet you.
Molly says she still hasn't been in a committed relationship because she's hated men all year.
Relatable queen.
God, going through this season must do a number on your ability to date as a woman. But Vanessa asks about girlfriends, and Molly says no, but she's open to that.
I was like, wait, is Molly bi and we just, like, never got into this?
They really need to do a Love is Blind queer love season.
I know.
When is
like,
it happening?
It's okay. Like, just change the structure so that everyone's dating everyone in the pods, and just keep people, like, isolated.
Yeah, keep them isolated.
Keep them isolated.
You would have to keep them isolated.
You would have to keep them all separate.
Yeah, but that's just
But
like
that's
such a,
fine. They all have hotel rooms.
it's just like, it just sounds so bleak.
I know.
Solitary confinement, and then you go talk to a wall. We'll workshop it.
We'll workshop. Look, they would need to have some moment. They would need to have some moments of social interaction, at least with like, I don't know. But
Yeah.
come on, guys. You can figure out a way to do this.
All right, let's talk about Alex, Madison, Mason, and Meg, the Madisa quadrangle. Everyone's calling it the Madisa quadrangle. It's so catchy. It rolls off the tongue.
Printed on t-shirts.
They invested so much time on this foursome in the pods, and then they got some like drama in the mixer. But I still was not expecting them to have such a prominent place in the reunion.
I mean, but they did. And I think that, you know, all of us were watching who have been following some of the rumors that have been coming out about Alex. I think we were all a little bit like, oh God.
Yeah.
To watch him. I mean, I basically, for anyone who has not been following, you should check out Storytime with Ricky's stories. She posted a deep dive about these rumors, and she actually spoke to 6 women who had said they experienced some of these things. Also, just want to put it out there have been 0 anything legal filed or criminal filed against Alex, so that's what it is. But basically, there are women who allege that Alex provided alcohol and a space to party to minor girls, like basically like 15-year-olds when he was 20. And it was implied that he was perhaps sexually involved with some of these girls. There also were a series of texts posted that were allegedly from his ex, the one that Alex said in the pods had cheated on him, that were very alarming. Like, they're very alarming.
And again, like, this has only been reported through TikTok, through Storytime with Ricky.
So it's hard to litigate, and I am not surprised, nor do I really think it would have been wise or appropriate for like Nick and Vanessa to try to litigate this in a public reunion. Like I think it was, and it's also unclear, frankly, whether even the TikTok reporting had come out by the time they had filmed this reunion. So we don't know, but it just did feel icky to see Alex on the screen.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I honestly have not really cared that much for Alex.
I mean, I haven't liked him since about like episode 3. So
yeah, so you know. I was never going to be excited to see him. I'm trying to take those allegations with a huge grain of salt, just again because they haven't been like reported out in a news
independently.
outlet. Yeah. You know, and we haven't confirmed anything independently. That sort of thing. So at the same time, obviously, we have been following that, and it's upsetting to contemplate that they might be true. That doesn't come up, obviously. What ends up happening is everyone kind of converges against Madison in a way that you described to me. You were watching it before me, and I was like, well, Madison is always kind of in the middle of things. Like, she does some things that are a little bit like sus or manipulative, or she's saying kind of wild things that I can't confirm from looking at the tape. Maybe they're all coming together to be like, she's telling lies about us. Like, we put our heads together and this stuff isn't true. Like, we realize she was always like stirring stuff up. But when you hear what they're actually saying, it doesn't sound like that. And I actually ended up feeling really uncomfortable with the way that they were framing
me too,
her part in their love square, and the way that they were kind of villainizing her for parts of it, that while she behaved imperfectly and definitely merited certain call outs, like, it's not like that was the sole cause of all of their slip ups and misbehavior, that they can just ping pong it right back at her.
That's what I found frustrating, is that it felt like all of the blame for anything that went wrong in any of the relationships was being put on Madison. And it was also, you know, Meg is sitting in between Alex and Mason on a couch. Madison is on a different couch. So the three of them are facing her.
Also, can we talk about, first of all, Madison had the most bizarre look on.
Oh God, it was awful. It was awful. She's absolutely stunning, and this look was horrible.
It was just like different pieces of different dresses sewn together. Meg, her whole vibe was so icy and off-putting, and I never feel like we got the answer as to quite where such an intensely negative vibe came from.
We know. And Meg has been posting since that she feels like her voice was silenced on the reunion. So
on Women's Appreciation Weekend.
It's not a thing, Meg.
Of all weekends.
On a day close to International Women's Day, which
a woman
Google has removed from our calendars thanks to President Trump.
Amazing.
It's just the whole, Meg's whole vibe was off. I will say that she was my personal, like, best dressed. I thought I liked the dress a lot, but her vibe was not good.
Yeah.
Her vibe it felt very off. She seemed to have a deep, deep, deep well of animus towards Madison. And I don't know whether our lack of understanding of where that comes from is the fault of like Netflix, or I don't know.
I assume they cut plenty from the reunion. Maybe
as they
cut
do
some things that would have given context to that. It is just off-putting to have someone come in so icy and angry at what seems like such a small thing.
Right. It's the pods. What we learn right away is that Mason and Meg did get together.
Yeah.
And they dated. That. And we knew that, but they dated. They apparently, according to Mason, we don't hear Meg's interpretation of their relationship, which I found notable. But according to Mason, they tried dating a couple times. They both like agreed that something was off between them, but they are best friends.
It sounded to me like she kind of tossed it to him. Like, do you want to take that one sort of style? Which made me think that their agreement is that kind of he is maybe the one who fucked up and he has to like explain it a little bit.
Yeah, I couldn't tell, but either way, she's not mad at him or at least not mad at him about the end of their relationship in a way that she was going to express during the reunion. And so it's odd to be
if she did, we don't see it.
But then it's odd to be so mad about the pods when like you dated. Right? Like the goal of the pods is to like, or I don't know. The goal of the pods allegedly is to like allow you to be with someone. You still got to be together.
They do a reveal day back in Minneapolis. Someone took a video of them doing their reveal.
Who took this video?
I found this so cringe, but
well, so did Alex. And Madison.
Yeah, I know. When Madison reveals Alex's shady text about this, I was like, I would have probably sent the same text.
I know, same. I know. I was like, these texts are fairly tepid and I think fairly normal shit talking.
Yeah, just a little shit talking. But Mason is like, we're best friends instead of lovers now, and we tried dating, but I felt like something was off ultimately. I agree. I never felt like they had a good romantic vibe together. Like there's something between them just reads as not romantic to me. It was a little off to me when they tried to connect on that level. So I was like, vindicated again.
I mean, I was like, yeah, I'm not surprising that they're not together. That's usually what happens when people try to date.
Yeah. And Madison says that Alex texted her that they were dating. And she's like, well, I was really happy for them. And I thought that was like super cute. They made a much better match than Mason and I did, which like Madison, we do all remember the footage of you at the mixer, like kind of rolling your eyes about it and being like, Mason's behavior about all this has been an ick to me.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a year later, she's not annoyed anymore, and it's easy to be like, I was happy for them, but like at the time I don't think she was happy for
Yeah, I think
them.
she was like, they're cute, but also she was making fun of them because she was annoyed at Mason. Like, just own it. It is what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. And Alex pipes up to talk
This
about
upset me.
how Madison was two different people in the
I
pods.
felt very uncomfortable with Alex getting a platform to just pile on Madison. Like the focus
Yeah.
of most of this segment was on Madison and Mason's relationship.
Right.
And so Alex exists just to be like, yeah, Madison is a two-faced bitch, basically, in not so many words. Like, that is his role. He says this multiple times, that she was two different people, which is just, I don't know, like, it's not the way that we tend to talk about men who have like one
we say they have a
relationship that's
Madonna
light
whore
and
complex.
yeah.
And we are right.
Okay, that's true. We do say that. But I can see, I don't know. I think it's fair to say, like, I felt like there were just really different sides of you that were coming out with the two of us, or I felt like, or like point to something specific and be like, I thought it was notable that your connection with Mason seemed to be like purely sexual or whatever. But instead, he is nodding at this idea that she is not consistent. She's not one person. She's duplicitous.
Right. She's actually two different women.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's completely true. He's playing into this sort of sexist trope of women
Exactly
being untrustworthy, being two-faced and conniving. And a very normal way to frame this is the two of us brought very different things out in this one person. These two relationships brought different things out of Madison. I was also a little put off by the fact that like she would go into her chats with Mason and just be like talking about cream pies or like the very frank
it was a lot
sexual talk, and then with Alex it was a different vibe. Like I get uncomfortable when it seems like there is someone that they're using as sort of like a sexual release, and then they have their like serious relationship. That's something that men do a lot and it bugs me. But that doesn't mean that she's
two different
duplicitous
people.
or two different people. And that's just kind of evoking this like scary,
oh, it's like she's a witch.
Witchy.
It really felt to me like they were like, this woman is a witch. I mean, Mason even says that he's just so envious that Alex could see things for how they truly were. He's basically like, Alex's coldness towards Madison was correct.
Yeah.
And like, I am jealous because he saw the real her, which was bad.
Right. He's like, I wish that I'd been saying those validating things that I said to Madison. I wish I'd been saying those to Meg. I look back and I wish I'd been saying those things to the right woman. And somehow he thinks this proves how strong his connection to Meg really is.
I'm like, but you're not dating.
You're not. You're literally
like,
not dating.
Like, it doesn't matter. You still got to date. And you're not together.
Right.
Like, Madison didn't prevent you from dating.
He still wouldn't have been saying them to the right person because he and Meg aren't right for each other.
Well, exactly.
And the fact that Madison was saying really validating things to him, I think it's fair to call her out and be like, you were saying these validating things when you weren't really at a place in the process to give me such strong validation. And that was confusing for me. 100%. But like, that also doesn't force pressure him to over validate her. He is in charge of how much he validates Madison.
Right. Everyone has their own agency here, and everyone needs to take responsibility for their own actions, whether if they were imperfect. And also everyone should probably give each other some grace because it is a very intense and difficult situation.
And one of the things that we talked about back in the pods is that it was a little weird when Madison got so upset at Mason for over validating her and then still dating Meg, because she was sort of doing the same thing to him, where she would be like, I'm kind of all in on you, but then she would still be dating Alex. And then at the same time, Mason was also, they were both kind of doing the same bad things in
Right.
this relationship. And
Right.
so for it to all be turned on to her feels very convenient. It's convenient for them
Yes.
to have a scapegoat and for that scapegoat to be like an untrustworthy, slippery, beautiful, sensual, like
Yep.
woman who's scheming
And
and setting them
damaged.
against each other and damaged and maybe she can't really love. Like the tropes are strong.
They're so strong.
And the way that they were talking to her really gave me like goosebumps. Like
It made me really uncomfortable.
it was it was almost like Mason especially was talking to her in this way like, how dare you come up to me and my lovely wife Marianne while we're having dinner at this restaurant? I don't even know you. You know what I mean? That kind of
Yeah.
like over performance of like, I'm so good and loyal and I only ever did the right thing. I don't understand why this woman is behaving in this trampy way to me. You know what I mean? That's a cover. That's what it felt like.
That
That's
that
sort
is
of
that
like,
you're nailing it.
it just made me feel dirty all over.
And Madison kind of tries to dial it back. She's like, I do honestly still think the world of Mason. I don't fault him for what happened in the pods. I just wanted him to be more honest with me in that situation. And at this point, Meg pipes in to go out Madison on Mason's behalf and be like, then why did you just call Mason manipulative in the press? So I went to look up this interview. Turns out that it was an interview that Madison and Meg both did with our friend Steph McNeil over at Glamour. There is a one word that is quoted from Madison that does call Mason manipulative, specifically referring to that one action he took in the pods. The rest of the interview contains multiple paragraphs in which Madison says that she does not fault Mason, that Mason is basically a good person, that Mason was put in a really difficult position and that she understands where things change so quickly. Like, she speaks about him really kindly overall in this interview.
But she said the word manipulative, so she's full of shit here.
And Mason has something to say about that, Claire.
Oh my God. So Mason points out that he's obviously just too dumb to ever manipulate someone. Manipulate someone? Me? Do you ever think I could possibly manipulate someone? Like, I'm stupid.
He's also like dripping with disdain. He tries to deliver it in this like saucy way. He's like, wow, I am so glad you think I'm smart enough to manipulate someone. A pin could drop. Complete silence in the audience.
Silence. No one thinks this is like an applause line except for Mason.
This also comes on the heels of Madison being like, Meg, I'm really sorry for speaking for you in the pods. I shouldn't have done that. And Mason is like, but to go back
to your point, yeah. I am too dumb to manipulate someone.
I am so dumb.
And I mean, I hate to break it to Mason, but it's actually not necessary to be intelligent. It's not necessary to be intelligent to be a little bit manipulative. It's very easy. It's one of the earliest things that children learn how to do is to manipulate an emotional reaction out of someone. Also,
you can do something that is manipulative without being conscious of it or without being like, without having malice. Like,
it's really just a way of saying like, oh, you did this to try to get me to do something
that you wanted. Every human being has done things that are manipulative. That does not mean that you are like a fundamentally manipulative person.
And that's what Madison says. She's like, I don't think you're a manipulative person. I did feel manipulated in that moment. And I think that we should clarify that the moment that they're talking about is when she kind of comes to the conclusion that Meg is really attached to Mason. She's more attached to Alex. It's time for them to kind of go their separate ways so they can pursue their stronger connections. And she floats this in a pod with Mason that like, it seems like we both have a stronger connection. And instead of agreeing and being like, yeah, let's end our relationship, or saying even like, I don't feel ready to end our relationship. Are you sure you are? I really want to keep working on this so that I'm sure. he says that he is committing to her. He's like, no, you can't. I actually, I'm all in with you. But then he keeps dating Meg, showing that he is not all in with Madison. And so she felt confused, and like he had said that he was committed to her to manipulate her into basically not ending things in that moment.
And I get why she would feel that way.
Because it's what he was doing, and it's not like the end of the world. It's very similar in a
No.
way to what happened with Leo and Hannah.
Yes. And Leo, was more overtly manipulative in that moment. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean like you should be canceled, you're a bad person. And as we said, there were also moments where it felt like Madison was being a bit emotionally manipulative towards Mason. Like, they both seemed to want to keep their options open until they knew they were like had safety.
Yeah. And they wanted to like elicit that from the other person.
Yeah. Like it's a tough situation that these things tend to happen.
But then Mason says,
this is where he lost me.
This was so annoying. He does this like self-righteously fatigued sort of like sigh and is like, Madison, I only committed to you because I felt pressured to do so. And she's like, I didn't force you. And he's like, I didn't say forced. I said pressured. Like, he is so tired of explaining this obvious thing to this simpleton. And Mason, she wasn't pressuring you. She was literally giving you the opportunity to break up with her. And I think she should have been more straightforward.
I agree.
Personally.
I agree.
But it was pretty obvious to me that she was letting you know that she thought it was time for you guys to part ways. And that's not pressure to commit. That is an opportunity to end things. If you took that as pressure to commit, that is in your head only.
Right. That's self-imposed. And then he reveals that he's actually just been the victim of Madison this whole time. Because watching their relationship back, he feels like he just got treated like crap the whole time.
The whole time.
The whole time? You guys were flirting. You guys were like basically, I don't know, you were like having phone sex through a wall. I don't know, not quite, but like you were like having fun together. You were both conflicted. You both were dating other people.
Yeah. And she's like, wow, this is wild because a couple months ago you apologized to me for the way you treated me in the pods when we were all out at a bar. And he's like, oh, like the time that you asked if I was out because you only wanted to come see me. And she's like, yeah, that time I wanted to clear the air. And he claims that during this conversation, she told him she had feelings for him, which she denies, and she seems flabbergasted. It seems possible that she told him, I had feelings for you.
Yeah.
And he, like, these men are all just like hallucinating Madison having interest in them, as far as I can tell.
It just starts to make me feel very uncomfortable because what it feels like is that they are weaponizing the impression, the mixed impression that the public has of Madison.
Yeah.
And they're like, this floozy, of course, she's like out here stalking me and telling me that she has feelings for me. Like the way he frames it as if she is literally lurking in the bushes at a bar to stalk him, rather than like asking mutual friends, oh, like Mason's out. I've actually been wanting to talk to him and clear the air.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pop by.
When he was dating Meg right after, I didn't want to step on toes. So I didn't do it until like later when I knew that he was single again. I think that like the Madison thing is, I remain a little skeptical. Like, her backstory is so wild that sometimes you step back and you're like, is this like all really true? Like, we know sometimes people embellish stories to sound more interesting. Like, she's manipulative a little bit in some of the choices she made in the pods, like, for sure. Is this someone I can trust? But when these confrontations happen, I never really see any evidence that she is ever lying. Like, it usually comes out that she is telling the truth when there is evidence of any kind, which makes me think that despite the perception of her as this sort of unstable, untrustworthy person, that she's maybe almost someone that people think that they can tell lies about because she's not seen
I
as
mean,
trustworthy.
yeah, that has been kind of my read on it. And of course, we don't have all the information, and maybe more information that will come out that will change our perception. But from what we have to go off of, that was kind of my read.
Yeah, because like
Also,
we don't even get into one of the big things that I thought might be a lie from her or Alex or someone, that she said that Alex told her that Meg was trying to get with him
I
after the
know
show.
they don't
They
even
don't even
mention
talk
that.
about
For
this.
some reason, we're only focused on Madison and Mason, which
Yeah. Why drop that on camera in the edit and then
not ask for it?
Litigate it.
It also was wild to me that Mason tries to say that his apology to Madison was actually apologizing that he, quote, didn't see your red flags. Like, Mason, that's not an apology. And I think she would know that's not an apology.
Right.
I'm
He's
so
like,
sorry that I didn't see how horrible you were.
Yeah, come on. You expect me to believe that you said that to her? And she was like, thank you so much for your sincere
Like she
apology.
said
She's
in this
not
interview
dumb.
with Steph McNeil, she mentions the apology. So clearly this is a thing she believes happened. Like, and she was mentioning it as basically like, we buried the hatchet. Like, the most likely scenario to me is this. A mutual friend said, hey, Madison, Mason's out at the bar. And she's like, okay, I want to clear the air. I'm going to swing by. He is a pretty conflict averse person. And so he was like, look, I'm really sorry for what went down. And she's like, you know what? I did have real feelings for you. I'm also sorry. And they buried the hatchet.
Right. And then he's like, well, that apology was out of context because it was actually an apology for not seeing your red flags in the moment.
It was really an apology to myself.
Okay. She's like, the switch up is crazy, Mason. And then Meg interrupts and is like, I'm the one who gets to be mad here because I got screwed over by both of you. And yeah, like Meg was the person whose relationship got kind of
blown up by this.
Meg seems mostly mad at Madison from this edit. She's like, your number one was Alex the whole time, so why were you coming for Mason when you had no intention of being with him? And Madison is like, well, I just was dating two people. I was actually pretty close, and I wanted to go through the whole process until I was sure.
Lots of people were doing that. That's the name of the game.
Like Mason was dating both of them. Like if he was so sure about how wonderful Meg was.
Because Mason is good and Madison is bad. So,
and like the thing is that no one made Meg do anything either. Like it's still not clear to me that Meg heard anything from Madison that was untrue about Mason. And if it wasn't untrue, then what happened is that Madison gave Meg true information and Meg made a decision about how she felt about moving forward.
And Madison has also repeatedly apologized for speaking for Meg in any way, like going into Mason and being like, you know, you might lose both of us or whatever. Like,
right. Like she was like kind of calling him out in this way that implied that she spoke for both of them and she really should have just spoken for how she was hurt by it.
Yes, and she owned that, which I was glad to see. At this point, Madison says, I'm so tired of women having to fall on the sword for things that men do every single day. It's exhausting to me. You, Mason, are getting off scot-free, and I'm sitting here taking all of the flack. You're not taking accountability.
Yeah, I liked Mason, honestly. Like,
so
I didn't think he was such a victim of the situation, but I didn't think he did anything so terrible. And like, they're all human. He seemed like a nice guy through the show. I liked him fine.
Me too.
And to come in and participate in ganging up on Madison, the three of them, I mean, the two of them fell in my estimation based on what I saw. Alex was already like
in enemy territory. Yeah.
But there were things that he should have taken accountability for. To say that when he committed to Madison and then kept dating Meg, he was pressured to do that, and so it's not his fault. Mason, you're like 33, dude.
I know.
Like, you're an adult man. That's just
Step
sad.
the fuck up, dude. Also,
And
this is when Alex pops back in to be like, Madison is really manipulative. And she's two different people, in case you didn't hear me say that the first time. And it's really unfair how she treated Mason because he's, quote, clearly a very genuine guy who just screwed up. What if she's like a very genuine woman who just screwed up?
no, that's when it's a woman, she's scheming and manipulative and burn the witch, burn the witch, burn the witch, burn the witch. She kind of dressed witchy too. Like, did she know that she
I
was
don't
going
know.
to be that she was going to be the witch?
I can't support that outfit. I
I
support
can't support it
women's
either.
rights and women's wrongs, but this is one wrong I cannot support.
This
the
outfit
outfit.
is one wrong too far for me.
Yeah.
Um, he's like, I also didn't understand why Madison was upset when she got what she wanted, which was me. And I think that's the real crux of it. He tries to be like, I
Yeah.
broke up with you to stand up for Mason. And she's like, no, you didn't. And I'm like, yeah, he broke up with you because he never wants to deal with his partner ever having a bad day and not servicing his emotional needs perfectly. And also because he was offended that you had any feelings about any other guy. And he wanted you to just be like so excited by however Mason acted because now you could be with Alex, the most perfect man ever. And like, that's not what
Ew.
happened. Because she didn't care only about you. She cared about other people in the world. And Madison is like, no, I was hurt. And then I felt invalidated by you. It's not that I was upset about losing Mason. I was hurt by how he acted. And then I was hurt that you invalidated me. And then we get into the whole like Alex is different off camera. She's like, the minute that I got my phone back, you were begging me to stay in LA with you. You turned on Mason. You said he had no friends and he was weird.
Rough.
I believe that he said these things.
I do too. I 100% believe it.
I mean, part of it is just that like people do talk a little shit.
I mean, that's the thing. People talk shit about their actual friends. Like, and you've just been trapped with these people for 10 days straight. It's not surprising to me that they would talk shit about each other, even if they like each other.
Right.
Like,
although having no friends and being weird is
no, that's
is
harsh.
rough.
That's intense. That's a little intense. And I do also, I'm sorry.
True.
I just don't.
I don't trust Alex at all. So she says that he said all of this and he pauses and then in this sort of completely affectless way says, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Why would I do that?
Why would I do that? Didn't I break up with you to stand up for Mason?
Yeah, okay, bud.
No,
like,
you did
that
not.
reaction to me was a little bit like,
that reaction to me made me think that she was telling the truth.
right, because he didn't actually seem like surprised to hear her say that allegation. He just seemed like, now I say, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. That is ridiculous.
Because I stand up for Mason.
Right. There was no reaction like, what? Why would I say that about Mason? He's
right. No, it
friend.
did not seem shocked. It was a sus reaction in my estimation. And again, we don't know for sure. But at this point, Madison starts pulling out like the screenshots from her boobs and like starts quoting texts where Alex is lightly talking shit about Mason and Meg and basically calling their reveal cringe.
Yeah, which honestly, those were texts that I would have sent. I probably sent meaner texts to you about people on Love is Blind. And so in a way, they're sort of tepid. I think, and they don't say the exact things that she had brought up before.
Right. I think she kind of says like there's things he said to her. He didn't put them in text.
Exactly. Like she was trying to sort of demonstrate that this is how he talks about them. But the worst things that he said, she's alleging more that he probably said in person. And so she has this sheaf of text message screenshots. And
she also says something to Alex that dinged something in me. And I was like, has she seen some of the rumors floating around about him? Because she says to Alex, you're the type of person who has to preemptively lie about people who know the truth about who you are, so that when I speak my truth, no one believes me.
Burn the witch.
I mean, yeah.
Meg is like apparently hardcore team Alex here because she's like, well, you lied and told everyone that the breakup with Alex was mutual when he clearly dumped you. And she's like, I never said it was mutual. She's
Who
like, he's not
knows?
your friend. He talks shit about you guys openly. And Alex is like, no, I don't.
And then it just ends.
And
They're
then
like,
it just
okay,
ends.
well, I
That
guess
is where it ends.
we've litigated enough.
What is happening? What is
I
happening?
I don't know. We talked about this reunion longer than
Significantly
reunion.
longer than the
Yes,
reunion. And
but
we still haven't talked about the fact that they spoiled Perfect Match.
well, to be fair, it was already out there that Ollie and AD were dating.
And now they're engaged. And we
And
do
I was
see...
honestly, I was so happy that the engagement was not Mason and Meg and that it was Ollie and AD because I loved
Absolutely.
both of them on their individual seasons. I love that
Yeah.
AD is like, you know, American Love is Blind. The men are not giving. The men on the UK version seemed a lot better.
Well,
and
mixed bag.
I said better. I didn't say good. I said better.
Steven was like an all-time
You know what? That's okay.
bottom
Fine,
of the barrel,
fine.
though. But yeah, overall, there was a little more improvement. Plus, you cannot turn up your nose at a European passport.
I was
right
just
now.
going to say, well, it wouldn't be EU. It's UK, and it's not so much better there, but it's still better
I'm not
than
saying
here.
EU. I'm just saying that the UK is
And-
literally in Europe.
Yeah, like AD, run from this cursed nation. Get that, get it. Get that dual citizenship. I love this for both of you, and they just seem so sweet. And frankly, I don't even care that they spoiled Perfect Match season 3 for me because I want to see them meet. I'm like so
and they
invested
keep being
now.
like, and you don't know whether they win the show or not. And I'm like, guys, no one cares
whether they win the show. Though we all know that winning the show is fake and useless.
But I'm happy for them, and I'm excited to see them meet and see the beginning of their love story. We learned that the next season of Love is Blind will be in Denver, thanks to a very grainy home video of a football player. They couldn't like get him a better camera.
They got these two football players, like one from the Minnesota Vikings, one from the Denver Broncos, to be like literally filming from like underneath their chins, being like, we wish the luck to the singles in the next city.
Happy dating.
It's so funny.
You just imagine one being like, fuck, I gotta film this
Yeah,
thing. No,
fuck
no,
it.
babe,
My
it's okay.
agent
It's gonna
signed me
take
up for
like
this.
15 seconds. It's gonna take 15 seconds. Don't worry about it. I'll be right there. I know the tacos are on the table. I'll be right there. Like, that's the vibe.
We also end with a bunch of video messages from married couples from Love is Blind wishing the franchise a happy 5th anniversary. And
Well,
a
here's what
weirdo-
we really end with. We
a
really
weirdo
end
fucking music video like
with a music
performance.
video. What was this?
I don't know, but I hated it.
Is this their like in network contracted guy to do all the super literal songs that they do? What's his name? Like Alex
I don't
Marshall or something?
Know what
really
his name
generic?
is, and I frankly don't care.
Alex Mason, Madison Marshall. I don't know, but it's one of those songs that seems designed for TikTok. It's like, "And it ever gonna be ordinary," you know, like that kind of vibe. And he's just like hollering this as he's pacing around the pods, and then there are all these like pod people prancing around and like kissing and stuff. And that's the end. And I was like, you guys thought this was a good way to end the season?
You're like, we
What
really
is
didn't need
this?
that.
We didn't
But-
need this.
Okay, this is where they end and this is where we end, but not before our final friends to enemies scale of the season. Our final disclaimer, this is tongue in cheek. We do not know these people personally, and therefore this is not that serious.
But let's try to decide who the worst person on this season
Okay,
is.
who do we think? Oh my God, I don't even know who my number one enemy. Shockingly, my number one enemy is
There's
it's-
a lack of information that makes
That-
it difficult to say. But for me, I'm going to say like
Alex
Dave,
and Joey.
and Joey are clustered right there.
Yeah, like honestly, Joey has somehow leapfrogged Devon and Ben, who are
That's
also.
not- I
I
don't-
don't know.
Like Monica, I think maybe Joey is not a globally bad person. I
That's
think
true.
that
Maybe,
he's just-
maybe his politics are good, in which case I can't
And I think
can't
he's
put
like a
him-
good family member and friend. I think he just did not take this process seriously at
and
all.
he didn't like Monica. Okay, fine.
And he didn't like
so
Monica.
So I do feel that Dave and Alex might be
Dave and Alex.
the top two.
Dave and Alex. Devon. Then Ben. Then Joey, I think, for me.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm
going
really
back and
mad
forth.
at Joey, though.
I'm
So
going
maybe
back and
Ben
forth
and Joey
between
are tied.
Yeah. And Devon's views seem like particularly apparently rancid, so
Yeah, Devon's down there.
but they're all enemies, you know.
They're all enemies.
I-
Like pretty much every guy on this season. Wow.
Mason and Meg are now my like frenemies.
At best.
At
yeah.
best. Yeah.
I
feel like I again don't have enough information, but I did not like their performances on this reunion.
Same.
They're my like acquaintance enemies. They're not even my friends at all.
Madison, to me, I think is a friend.
She is like a friend.
She's
But
a
maybe
messy
not
friend.
a messy friend. She's a very messy friend.
But that's okay. We love a messy friend.
Yeah.
Sarah, I think, is a friend.
Sarah's a friend. Oh, Sarah's
Daniel-
definitely a friend.
Daniel and Taylor are friends.
Yeah, they're friends. They're so happy.
Molly, Monica, Virginia, and Lauren. Friends. You know what? I think this is our most gender segregated.
This is our most misandrist
ever. It's like the course of a season is just like sorting the men and women into groups of good and evil, and this is like the most extreme that has ever been, I think.
I know. Only Daniel is like peeking his head out like Taylor's eyes are from his chest.
Jesus Christ.
And on that note, that is it for this episode of Love to See It with Emma and Claire.
Love to See It is a presentation of Odyssey. The show is produced by us, Claire Fallon and Emma Gray. This episode was edited by Tori Piskin. Our theme music is by Tamar Haviv, and our art is by Aaron Nestor.
If you like our show, remember to follow us, rate us 5 stars, leave a review, and of course, spread the word to all of your friends about Love to See It and our patented friends to enemies scale.
If you want to get in touch, you can email us at claireandemmapod@gmail.com.
You can also find us on TikTok at Love to See It Pod and on Instagram at Claire and Emma Pod. And you can find our newsletter Rich Text on Substack at claireandemma.substack.com. I'm also on Blue Sky at Emma Gray and on Instagram at Emma Lady Rose.
And I'm at Claire E. Fallon. Special thanks to the team at Odyssey: Eric Donnelly, Aaron Constantino, Kate Rose, Moira Curran, Melissa Wester, Carly Snyder, and Hillary Shoup.
We'll be back next week with more on Grant's season of The Bachelor. It is fantasy suites time, baby.